Today we are going to be discussing the final lightsaber duel between Kylo Ren and Rey on the wreckage of the Death Star. I've gotten a lot of requests about this battle, and even though I do have my own hangups with this film itself, the duels were not really one of those hangups. Rey and Kylo duking it out on the carcass of the Death Star surrounded by unrelenting waves was probably one of the coolest things J.J. Abrams directed in this film. And although we don't have an audio commentary yet for this duel, I definitely get what JJ was trying to demonstrate and accomplish. And personally, I think he delivered an interesting duel to say the least, even if it ended in a rather unconventional way. Now, there are some criticisms for this lightsaber duel, which I will address right now. The main one I hear is that it appears as if Rey and Kylo are merely swinging their lightsabers like baseball bats. To that I say sure, some of it looks like that. It's definitely reminiscent of an original trilogy style lightsaber duel, and I think that's on purpose. However, I took their baseball bat symmetrical fighting style to represent their dyad connection and that inability to truly outmaneuver one another. Sure, Kylo Ren is clearly the more skilled duelist in this fight, but my point stands. They both never land any blows until distraction intervenes. The other criticism I see is the lack of a score undermining the gravitas of the final lightsaber duel. I hear that it should have been Duel of the Fates, underscoring the entire thing. And to that I say, no, it definitely could have been that, but it never should have been that. The lack of music signifies the intimacy of the fight itself between Kylo and Rey, much like the quiet eeriness of Vader vs. Luke on Cloud City. I totally get that this duel could be considered as a duel of the fates regarding the galaxy, as well as the spiritual fates of Rey and Kylo, but still, I just don't think it works. It's just them, the hum and clash of lightsabers, and the roar of the ocean, and I think that's perfect. So first, before we dive into how this duel unfolds, I think the best place to start is always talking about where each character is mentally, because the most important component to a lightsaber duel beyond the spectacle is what's motivating it, and what's at stake for the two people involved. At this point in the film, both Rey and Kylo are in a state of desperation. Kylo is obsessed with turning Rey to the dark side because of what she has turned out to be. Plus, if you have read the novelization, which I recommend to anyone wanting more clarity on this film overall, Kylo Ren already knows that he is fated to die if Rey becomes a Jedi. Kylo Ren has no desire to be the pawn of Palpatine or anybody, and he also has no desire to truly kill Rey. Plus, I imagine the idea of dying is something that he's not really that interested in. So his only option is to turn Rey to the dark side so that she can help him kill Palpatine. Then, in his mind, they can both rule the galaxy together, just like he offered in The Last Jedi. Rey's desperation is a bit more clearly defined in my eyes. She traveled all over the galaxy to find a wayfinder that will aid in saving said galaxy. But while doing so, all of her repressed memories of her family have come back, and she's learned that she's the granddaughter of the Star Wars devil. And unless she succeeds in her mission of figuring out how to get to Exegol, the galaxy and the Jedi are doomed. Rey is literally the last Jedi and the last hope the galaxy has in this moment. Plus, having just faced a dark vision of herself in the Emperor's vault definitely affected her emotional state big time. Rey literally stumbles out of the vault falling, dropping the one thing she desperately needs right into the hands of Kylo Ren. And then she immediately ignites her lightsaber when she sees him, realizing in that moment that she's failed. And the spark of this duel is Kylo Ren crushing the wayfinder between his fingers, which propels Rey into the most rage I think we've seen her display throughout the trilogy. Fear and anger leads to the dark side, and Kylo crushing the wayfinder was his final gambit to push Rey one last time towards the dark side to join him. He knows that the dark side is in her nature, which is why he's said to surrender to it. And honestly, his gambit does pay off for most of the duel, as Rey does give in to her anger immediately and goes on the attack. Now, the first but very brief section of this duel takes place in the Emperor's throne room, which was a nice callback to Return of the Jedi. But what made the opening of this duel great was how Kylo decided to react to Rey's explosive attacks. Kylo evades every strike that Rey tries to land. Whether she is stabbing at him or slicing, he is easily avoiding it all. And it reminded me a lot of how Luke engaged Kylo in Crate, with his ducking and dodging of every strike Kylo tried to land. And because Rey can't land one blow, it pushes her deeper into her anger. It's basically what we saw from her training with the remote in the first act. Kylo dodges 7 of Rey's strikes before he ignites his blade to meet hers, and that's because she's delivering an overhead strike. And visually, as I said, this sequence is very impressive. It just demonstrates how in control of the situation Kylo is, while Rey is aimlessly attacking him. And she's not even realizing how she's playing into Kylo's wishes of surrendering to the dark side. Also, 10 points for hilarious heel clicks when Kylo jumps to a lower level of the Death Star. That was amazing. Now, unfortunately, there's a huge gap in this duel. The duel picks back up when they are both outside of the wreckage, completely engulfed by the ocean and its raging waves. If there was any more to this fight inside of the Death Star, it's on the cutting room floor. Even the novel basically says, and somehow they were outside, because that's just kind of how it feels. So that's a little nitpick that I have right there. Now, I'd say that it's pretty obvious that JJ wanted this all to be the antithesis of the duel on Mustafar, in a visual sense and a spiritual one. The duel wasn't going to be about someone falling to darkness, but of someone metaphorically being reborn in the light. So water comes in handy at helping convey that message. And for Rey, she is slowly losing her own inner struggle to tame her darkness. However, she's not truly going to go to the dark side. And another thing I wanted to point out is that this bridge that they are on, or whatever you want to call it, is supposed to also remind us of Han going after his son one last time on Starkiller Base. Han made one final desperate attempt to bring his son back to the light. And here's Kylo Ren, desperate to get Rey to finally surrender to the darkness inside of her. And as you know, both of these scenes have very similar climaxes. Now, back on the exterior of the Death Star, both Rey and Kylo are dueling one-handed. To me, it always looked like Kylo is letting Rey tire herself out while continuing to evade everything that she has. But there is one moment where it looks like Kylo tries to circle parry Rey's lightsaber right out of her hand, and then he fails to do so. My guess is Kylo Ren probably thinks that once she is disarmed, she will have no other option than to go with him to Exegol. Again, he's not really interested in killing Rey yet. In the novel, it makes it clear that Rey is really harnessing her anger to enhance her abilities in the Force during this fight. The reason she's able to perform the jumps she does is because of the power she feels inside her as she fights Kylo Ren. But unfortunate for Rey, Kylo Ren is basically unstoppable. His guard is unbreakable, and over time, he is literally going to wear her down completely. When Rey and Kylo do lock up and they see the first encroaching wave, these enormous swells coming at them, we see that power that Rey can harness because of her rage, and she jumps a chasm right before the wave crashes down on them. And watching Kylo jump through the air after Rey, while we see the tiny faint glow of his red lightsaber, honestly might be the best frame of this entire duel. It's definitely something that's not been seen so far in this trilogy, but it harkens back to the prequels. And this circles back to why I like the direction of this duel. Visually, it's one of the most impressive fights in this trilogy. When they both reach the other side of the chasm, it's back to trading equal blows at this point. From here on out, I think Kylo Ren is beginning to accept that Rey will never surrender to him personally. She isn't giving in to the gambit. In the novel, it even tells us that according to Rey, only one of them is getting out of there alive. And from a certain point of view, that's true. Now, it does look like Kylo goes in to stab Rey at one point, but he's parried quickly, with Rey bringing her lightsaber down on top of his. And he's locked in this with Rey for a moment, and Rey's keeping him there just long enough to try to trap him in another gigantic wave. And I thought this was a smart use of one's surroundings to see if a wave could knock Kylo off of the bridge. And visually, seeing that blade in the water vapor and Kylo's lightsaber scorching the top of the bridge, it was very neat. And weirdly, this moment does not exist in the novel. In the book, Rey just flips out of the way to safety at the last moment and Kylo doesn't. But in the movie, it's conveyed like a calculated action to make sure Rey can gain the upper hand momentarily, or at least catch a breath. Now, for a moment, it does seem like maybe he was washed away, but then Kylo emerges from the crashing waves like nothing happened. Not even the raging ocean can stop him from his goal of turning Rey. Now, this is where the music enters into the duel, and Kylo Ren switches up his strategy because now it seems like he wants to teach Rey a lesson. At least, this is how I'm reading the following sequence of events. And the music is mostly dissonant tones punctuated by hits that kind of sound like something is getting stabbed. It's not as elegant as The Last Jedi's musical compositions or, something like Battle of the Heroes, but the tone matches what we are seeing on screen, no doubt. Kylo goes into a reverse hand grip and then delivers a lightning fast strike, which Rey parries, but he immediately brings his blade back around, only to be stopped by the Force, which held his blade from completing its motion. Based on the angle of the camera, it seems like he was aiming to maim Rey's arm or shoulder area. Rey forces his blade back, and Kylo relentlessly attacks Rey again, but is still parried until he rotates around, exposing his back, which Rey tries to take advantage of. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but here it looks like Rey tries to chop off Kylo Ren's head, but Kylo is way too fast and immediately uses the Force to rotate himself around, and it stops her blade in motion the way that she had just stopped his. This is a clear homage to Obi-Wan Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar, but it also does demonstrate how powerful both Rey and Kylo are now. From here, Rey delivers a series of 5 strikes, and each are easily parried by Kylo. And what's interesting is now he's just letting Rey literally tire herself out. We can see it happening. He walks backwards as she primes herself up for another sequence, but Kylo just knocks the strike aside like it's nothing. You know, during my first watch, I figured that Rey was losing energy primarily because of what she had done earlier in the film, which was heal that snake on Pisana. Funnily enough, that's exactly what the novel states in regards to Rey losing her stamina against Kylo Ren. She's running on fumes at this point, while Kylo remains unfazed. When the two of them get locked up again, Kylo uses his crossguard to keep her saber at bay, but explosively forces her blade up and away, and it seems to immediately affect Rey as she's shaking her hand to alleviate some pain. In the novel, it talks about how these blows from Kylo shock her entire system, and to be honest, it seems like Kylo is tired of fighting Rey at this point. He even looks disappointed. At this point of this duel, Rey is clearly beaten, even though she persists. Kylo continues to deliver strikes as hard as he can until Rey finally falls to one knee, and she's literally left panting. Now this is where things get kind of interesting. Kylo delivers 2 final strikes at a fallen Rey who looks like she's realizing that she's about to be killed, and then Kylo freezes. Kylo is about to deliver an actual killing blow to Rey, but he senses the death of his mother, as well as the fact that she's using the remaining life force that she has to reach out to him, to forgive him. And as this happens, he also turns around, demonstrating that his awareness is clearly elsewhere, and he drops his lightsaber. This gives a defeated Rey her opening to now defeat Kylo. And with Kylo's back turned, she grabs the falling lightsaber and impales him in a similar area where Han Solo was impaled by the same blade. Now, I think 2 things regarding Rey impaling Kylo. First, the motivation is purely out of revenge because of what he did to the Wayfinder. So with that in mind, this is arguably the most un-Jedi-like thing Rey has done in the entire trilogy. And even though this film is a messy story, it does aid in her story of coming to terms with the darkness inside of her and what her real lineage is. And secondly, since she can't sense that Leia is dying, or has died, she honestly has no idea why Kylo let his guard down like that, and he was about to deliver what definitely looked like a killing blow. You know, at the very least, we were about to get the J.J. Abrams version of an arm getting cut off. So Rey reacting on instinct and grabbing that lightsaber to save herself is understandable. So who really won this duel? Well, no one. And that's not what this duel is all about. Most of the duels in Star Wars are just a flashy version of an argument. And in this case, both people came to a stalemate. Kylo gained nothing by trying to push Rey to the dark side, and Rey gained nothing by giving into fear and anger when she impaled Kylo. It horrified her so much that she fled to Ahch-To. And theoretically, Palpatine was right that Kylo Ren would die if he didn't kill Rey and turn her to the dark side. Rey healing his wound and Leia doing what she could to help turn Ben back to the light in her final moments actually did expunge whatever was left of Kylo Ren. All that was left was Ben Solo, alone on a Death Star. Now, to close out this video, I wanted to say that I thought it was smart to use this duel for 2 purposes to set up our final act of the film. This duel was the redemption of Ben Solo. This sets him on the path to Exegol to aid Rey against the Sith Eternals and Palpatine. And in regards to Rey, this duel forced her to finally confront what was going on inside her. The entire film she was avoiding it, pretending like nothing was wrong, but people around her noticed that clearly something was wrong with Rey. And it's Luke Skywalker that reminds her of what it means to be a Jedi and how she faces this fear and faces Palpatine. She can save the galaxy, and that she doesn't need to be defined by her bloodline. This duel helped both characters overcome something, and I like that a lot. So that's really it regarding Kylo and Rey on the Death Star. It's a strange fight to discuss because of the stalemate ending, but what it all leads to is pretty glorious. So sure, I mentioned a million times that this movie is a mess, but from this point till the end, it's a pretty great ride, and Ben Solo's return is still one of the best things that happened in all of Star Wars. So the duel rating for me, 8 out of 10. May the Force be with you. AT-AT is signing off.